start, let's do an African clap and turn everybody's brain on. So we do 1, 2, 3 and clap, okay? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay, so my name's Steve Cran, and
me too. Yeah, same.
I've been a permaculture guy for about 26 years now. And when I first started in permaculture, I thought that permaculture was going to be full of really intelligent people with lab coats and out there doing things to save the planet and all that, right? And so I jumped into permaculture and I realized it was quite empty. There isn't that many people that are doing the right thing. So what I wanted to do was do the things that needed to be done. I thought, didn't want to be a permaculture teacher. I just wanted to build permaculture farms and models, because I think a working model changes more people than anything. I still believe that today, right? And anyway, so I started off in Brisbane doing backyard permaculture. And at first I thought I'd work for poor people and give them vegetable gardens and all that, but it was actually the rich people that wanted it. The poor people want lawns, they want Greek columns, they want to make their house look rich. The rich guys have already been there, and it doesn't really do them any good. So I started doing permaculture. I got bigger and bigger jobs. I did housing estates and all that kind of stuff, and I had visions of edible cities. I was very idealistic back then. I still am, I guess. But then I did a permaculture park at Redcliffe, and it was a park that I did with the Lions Club, and we planted all these fruit trees. And then a few days later, I got a call from Bill Molson, and he wanted me to come down and see him about a job. So to cut a long story short, I ended up working in an Aboriginal community, which is called Wilkenya, and it was Australia's highest crime town. And it had 1,000 people when I got there, and there'd been 2,500 arrests when I got there. So everybody had been arrested 2.5 times. The more damage that you do to the environment, the more it reflects upon the people. So the damaged environment was damaged through having hooved animals, sheep, and removing all the trees to feed the steam engines back a couple hundred years ago. So I stayed there for 2 years, just over 2 years, 2.5 years, it was 2.25 years, and my project dropped the crime 90%. And that's pretty good. But what was amazing to me was after the figures came out of what happened, the government just buried everything and didn't want to talk about it, right? And I was really cut up about it. I thought, why doesn't people jump up and say, hey, let's do permaculture? Then I worked it out. There's 63 government departments that make money on Aboriginal problems, right? Imagine if you had a job, you got your $40,000 a year and your 4-wheel drive and all that. Someone comes along and solves a problem, and you don't have a job anymore. You wouldn't be very happy, would you? So they just shut up, just keep it down. So I stopped working for Aborigines, and I worked at the Permaculture Institute for a while with Jeff Lawton and Bill Molson. And then out of the blue, this project came up here in Jasper Hall. So I went with probably about 10 people. We built a community similar to this one here in Rosebank. And Tony came along and built the geodesic dome for us. We taught permaculture and we planted food up and all that. And then kind of out of the blue, I got a job in East Timor in 1999 when the Australian Army went over to Timor on behalf of the UN and secured the country for the UN to come in, right? So the time I got there was only a few weeks after that had happened, and actually the Australian Army ran the country, right, before the UN came. So East Timor was my first overseas development job. And when I got to East Timor, I saw all this giant, input from the UN, NGOs, charities, individual do-gooders coming over, just giving stuff to the poor people, right? But actually it was having very little effect on the people. The first couple of years there, the UN was spending like $250 million on themselves and only $1 million on the Timorese. And it really, that didn't compute in my mind. Plus I saw all these other things, and then I started to get really angry, seeing the UN wasting money, these charities wasting money and all this. And finally a little voice in my head said, don't get mad, get effective. So from that moment on, I started to come up, I said, there's got to be a system we should use, right? Out of all the years of aid, who's got an aid book? Nobody, right? Nobody's developed a book or a system of how to do aid, okay? So I came up with this thing called the 5 Rings of Sustainability. My system is very simple, or the 5 Rings of Sustainability. All right, let's put it on the board here. we have 5 rings, and this is just a concept. It's not actually, you don't go and mark a ring out on the ground, right? So the first thing we look at is the home and garden. All right. When we say home and garden, sometimes people don't have homes if you're doing aid. Like in Timor, 75% of the infrastructure and housing was burnt to the ground. They just drove around with a fire truck full of diesel and dieseled the whole neighborhood and then lit it on fire. You can imagine what that does to your morale. And even your garden is burnt, right? Anyway, so what we do with the home garden, so you got a bunch of poor people who have had a disaster, you focus on helping them grow food at home, all right? And straight after a disaster or even during a war or whatever, people have a lot of grief and a lot of stress, you know, and they're fearful. So when you start the home garden, it refocuses their energy on something positive. Plus they begin to produce something. You know, people are consumers, right? They like to consume, but actually you get a balanced human being when someone produces what they consume. So home garden's all organic. We have a diversity of vegetables, herbs, flowers. We make it pretty. We make nice patterns on the ground. It's not just an ugly, you know, utilitarian box. It's pretty, all right? And then we get them to have some pride in it. So you've solved a lot of problems with a home garden. You've solved nutrition, hunger. You've solved a lot of health problems. You've got enough resources now to start a little trade, so there's a bit of an economy happening. And best of all, you've changed the morale, because now they see hope. Now they can see they can do something and they can change the world. Before the world was changing them, right? So this one really changes. This is a game changer. This is what I use to stabilize a community that's really fucked up, right? And you know, like when I went to the tsunami zone in Aceh, everything had been erased. There was no cities left. There was nothing left, right? The survivors only survived because they weren't there that day. They came back to nothing. So that their mind was that no more, like one guy I worked with, he had 14 relatives that were dead. He was the only guy left in his family. So you can imagine his trauma. But once you get them going and they get them working together, a whole new kind of family comes together, right? So home garden is really important. If you're going to donate money to a charity, ask them are they going to do home gardens. So that's the one you want to fund. All right? Next one is village development. So in the village is where everybody lives. A lot of times there's a lot of chaos. So their animals are running everywhere. They got rubbish thrown all over the place. They got no water. They got no electricity or whatever, right? So we start off with sanitation first, water and sanitation, right? I'll give you an example of what happens if you don't have it. I was in this town in Africa called Dinga in Uganda, and everybody shat in the main street. So there's just human turds up the street that way. People talking to you, they just drop their pants and they'd be crapping while I'm talking to you. Dude. And so I go to eat my lunch, and then, you know, while I'm eating my lunch, flies land on my rice, right? And I think, I know where you were standing before you were standing on my rice, man. You know? And then I ate it, and then I got typhoid, right? So you actually can't do any aid unless you sort out the sanitation, because you're going to be dead or you're going to be sick. So I learned that one the hard way. So we put in composting toilets, and we get the village chief or whatever to make sure that sanitation is done. We don't want people going and shitting in the river and shitting in the bush. We actually got to sort that out. So the simplest form of compost toilet is just basically dig a hole. You need 1 bag of cement and some sand, and you make something about this size, like a pallet size, with a squat toilet on it with cement, and then you put some handles in it, and then 4 guys can lift it and put it over the hole. When the hole's full, you mulch it, plant some bananas, and put on another one, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the simplest one that can be done for 1 bag of cement. That's $5 for a bag of cement. Okay. All right. Also, we look at the schools. Now that's where I really like to start, because in the school, whatever you do in the school in the village goes out to the rest of the community, right? You don't have to go and find the people in the bush. The kids are coming to school. So in the school, we build a nursery for trees like fruit trees, fodder trees for animals, medicine, bamboos, flower trees, any tree that has a purpose. We design the future with lots of these resources, right? So it's kind of like a resource nursery. So kids come to school and they take home, each kid takes home 100 trees a year, right? So if the kid goes to school for 10 years, how many trees has he taken?
It's 1,000 trees.
Oh my God, Tony, that's amazing. 1,000 trees. So he's planted out his own land, his uncle's land, his auntie's land, his grandma's or whatever, right? And so he's got all those resources. So when that kid becomes an adult, he's got all those resources, right? How simple is that? So in Timor, I did that. I did 10 rural schools 10 nurseries. Each nursery grew 30,000 trees per year. And if I went back to Timor now, I could go back to those kids who are now adults and find their trees and say, that's the one you planted at school, right? Yeah. So his whole family's getting mangoes or getting, you know, something useful out of it. That's permanent aid. That's sustainable, right? Right. We can also control the animals in the village. So if you don't have any fertilizers, if you control the animals in a feedlot or in sometimes we put them at the school and get the kids to feed them. We've got the manures there for our fertilizers, right? Plus we don't have droppings all over the place and flies everywhere. You can also put poultry in with those animals and you'll get rid of the flies. We can fix up the market. We can bring in electricity. We can do pipe in good water. There's so many things we can do in village development. Now around the outside of these small towns there's always small farms, right? So they're 1 or 2 acres run by the family. We train them to diversify their crops. We train them in organics so they don't have to buy any more inputs. And so we make the land fertile, we turn it into paradise. I mean, basically permaculturists are paradisologists. So they can turn the shithole into something that's just pumping food, everybody's happy and healthy, right? So the small farms are pretty easy because they're normally running at about 5% capacity anyway, right? And of course, a farmer's duty is to feed his family first, then to feed his community, and then to feed his district, and then to feed his country. And then only after that's done, can he export overseas, right? It's pretty stupid when you have a poor farmer in India exporting legumes and his family's starving to death. Okay, so small farms is fun too because you can do everything that they're doing, you do it better. You can grow, in Philippines we grow better rice than the locals, so now they come to our farm. We grow duck, fish and rice where they only used to grow rice. So that's 3 things, right? And we grow our vegetables. We grow lots of different things that they've never seen before because the conventional agriculture has shrunken down the availability of non-hybrid open pollinated seeds. So they're buying all this shit. Seeds come from China. As soon as you plant them, they're rotten. They're rotten with pests. We did this experiment in East Timor where I took all the seeds that the UN was giving out, and we grew 4 or 5 different vegetables to seed. We planted the seed. The second lot of vegetables was half sized. The third lot of vegetables was 1/3 the size and there was no fruit on them. There was no seed or flower. So they had the Terminator gene back in year 2000. Right? Okay, so we teach them about GMOs and chemicals and all that kind of stuff, right? But we use a lot of humor, right? You tell them their balls will drop off if they keep using that fertilizer. A lot of farmers, you know, they can handle cancer, but they can't handle when their balls drop off. So it's, okay, I'm not using that anymore. All right, the next one is community forestry. Now, this is where a community can become billionaires, right? They don't believe me, but you know, you look at, say, timber trees, fruit trees, all the resources that you can bring out of forestry, it only takes 5 years to start getting a return. And in 10 years, you could have millions of dollars worth of resources. And in 20 years, you could have billions of dollars worth of resources, right? But you have to get your calculator and add up what timber's worth. It's got to be a smart, tactical system, and you can have the school children planting out the community forestry zones year by year as part of their, like a festival or something like that. One thing I found with forestry, if an adult goes to plant trees, right, the community goes, hey, you're trying to steal my land, because in squatters, the first thing they do is they plant trees to say that's my garden, right? But if the kids plant the trees, they go, oh, isn't that great? The little kid's planting his future. There's no political fallout. So we always use the kids to do everything. Plus the kids start planning it out, and you know what? When they're adults, they know everything is because they bloody planted it, right? And guess what their kids are doing? The same thing, because they start generating this repairing the environment, repairing your economy, you know, repairing their health through the nutrition. At a certain point, you just got to stand back because it just takes off. And where it takes off is down the path of their own culture, wherever they're from. If it was Thai people, they'll pull back all the Thai culture into their system, or the Filipinos will pull it back in, right? So you have to, the culture's got to be in permaculture, all right? Then we have community forest, then we have the eco zone, right? Now the eco zone is ideally it's an unspoiled piece of forest or something that has ecological value. It's got the waterfall, it's got a river or something. It's actually your seed bank, your genetic bank for your animals, your birds, everything that's alive on Earth that Mother Nature gave us should be preserved in the zone. So there's no hunting, there's no burning, There's nothing that you do in that'll affect only low impact things like maybe a nature walk or maybe some low impact camping or something like that, right? So they actually can make money by repairing and preserving it. If you don't have a value in that forest, other people start looking at that forest as, hey, look at all those logs standing over there, right? But if it's earning the money, or they've got some other kind of value or cultural value, they won't let anybody in there, right? So in each of these zones is what we call evidence-based best practice, just like in medical, right? You have a best practice that works. I can do the same practice in the Philippines, or I can do it in Vietnam, I can do it in Africa. Home garden works in every community I've ever been, right? But of course it's got to be a home garden suited to their tastes and so forth. The village development, there's all kinds of things we can do that are sure things. Definitely we can sort the waste out. Definitely we can bring in clean water. Definitely we can work in the school, right? In fact, I say it's essential to work in the school if you really want to make a change in the community. Small farms, it's a no-brainer, right? And the community forestry, that's how you turn a poverty into prosperity, right? That's the muscle, the financial muscle of the future. Imagine if a poor community got together and said, we're going to build bamboo furniture. And someone said, well, we don't have any bamboo. Yeah, but we will in 5 years. And this is the whole list of bamboos we're going to have. And I know where to get it. And if we get the kids planting it now, in 5 years' time, we're going to be rich. And everybody goes, hey, good plan, right? So this, you can go to a war zone, you can go to a tsunami zone, you can go to some poverty zone, anywhere where people have lost their ecosystem is where this comes in, because it's a 2-for-1 aid. I don't help anybody unless they're going to repair the planet. Why would I lift up a bunch of people to destroy the planet again? So I say to them, the reason you're poor is because you got no ecosystem. How can you have any sustainability without an ecosystem? Where's your water come from? Where's all your wildlife, your food, all that kind of stuff, right? So most people are poor because they lost their ecosystem either through disaster, like the tsunami zone, or through war, like in Timor. When you have a long-term war, the military does all the logging. The military steals everything, right? In every country I've been to. So a prolonged war is that by the end of the war, everybody's poor and the environment is poor, right? So they have to put it back. So poverty can sneak up on you when you're killing your environment, right? Or it can just come in one big wham, like the tsunami zone, right? But it's always got to be, if you want sustainability in aid, you've got to put it back. So the kids, they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's true, right? Some of the adults will follow along, but all the kids will follow. All the kids will follow, and they have fun doing it, right? So I say that probably working in schools has got to be, definite. You got to do, right? And then you got your eco zone and all that. So slowly, after it takes about 2 years to convert a community into a sustainable aid vision for themselves, because you've got to break through all the usual suspects, right? What kind of usual suspects would you have in an impoverished community? Well, somebody always makes money out of somebody else's problems, right? So a lot of times you'll have either a stupid village chief, or you'll have a corrupt one who's using the poverty to, control everybody. You may get a grant, you'll take half the grant or 3/4 of the grant money and give out, a few pennies or something like that, right? You got a lot of bad farming. So there's no more fertility in the soil. There's nothing left, so they'll use chemicals so the soil can just hold the plant up. They don't need any fertility, right? But of course, all their money for the community is going out to the agribusiness, right? Everybody's doing something to maintain poverty, right? So you have to turn it around. Now, what's the difference between sustainable aid and conventional aid? What does conventional aid give us?
Like an instant fix, but not long term.
Yeah,
Band-Aid.
It's actually aid. It's actually aid to the organization. What I mean is, okay, say you've got a UN agency doing a job. All those people at UN agency get paid like 60 to 80, maybe $100,000 US tax-free a year, right? Their victims that they're working with are getting $3 to $5 a day. Who's getting the aid? What they do, they go around looking for victims. Oh, are you poor? You poor? Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll give you $5 a day if you stay poor. Okay, deal, done, right? So they go, look at all the poor people I'm working with. You got to give me more money, man. we never look at it like that, but that's exactly what happens. In Aceh, when I went there, I never saw so many. Aceh was the epicenter of the Asian tsunami, but you never saw so many aid organizations pour in. And because it was a dangerous place, there was a war going on, there was earthquakes every day. They'd already been wiped out by a tsunami, and they had extremist Muslims. Right, that's the kind of place. So most of the NGOs stayed in the city, and then the aid would every morning there'd be like a traffic jam with these guys trying to get out driving out to their projects. So at 45 kilometers out, that's where aid ended. My project, I lived in the field. We lived out 60 clicks out, right? But we saw this nightmare coming out all the time. And so at first, it was great because people got food, they got a tarpaulin, they got something, right? But and as time went on, they started saying, okay, well, what kind of house do you want? And people say, well, I'm going to go with World Vision because they're going to give me three-bedroom house. Oh, we'll give you 4. Okay, I'll have 4, right? They had this Dutch auction going on with victims. And then the people became real assholes, right? Because everything was about getting money. Every time they looked at you, you could see that they're looking at you like a cash cow, I even saw NGOs that had, projects up where they had the USAID, and the USAID guys come along and they take, oh yeah, great, well done, As soon as they leave, Canadian aid, there it is, the same project. 5 or 6 different projects funding the same place. There was no coordination. And so the Achenese became, it would have been anybody could be the same, right? You saw all these people wanting to pour too much resources into this problem, but there was no coordination and no, brains behind it. So out of our project, we implemented this one. And I said to the guys, our people, you guys want to go, we'll collect all the waste off the beach and we'll build a house out of that. Some people said, no, we don't do that. We won't get a house from World Vision, or we won't get a house from Care or whatever, right? But all those people who did what we said ended up with good houses. All the aid houses lasted 1 year and then were eaten out by termites and fell down. Or they're made with super substandard materials, bricks you can push your finger through and stuff like that, because there's a whole chain of assholes bleeding the aid before it actually gets to the field, right? And aid's been going on so long, the people there's nobody looking at aid and saying that's good and that's bad. It's all a Hollywood set. It's all smoke and mirrors, All you need is a photograph of some poor little kids with some bowls of rice to say, please help those kids, and I'll donate $1, I'll donate $10 or whatever. But you don't know that your money's probably just wasted. You just supported a giant organization that does a very minimal amount on the ground, right? Most aid gets sucked up in the administration of administration. So what we need is a new way. So this is great, having a system like this, but how do you implement it? If you just got a backpack on and you went to some disaster zone, give me a disaster zone. Where?
Syria.
Where?
Syria.
Okay, Syria. Okay, let's get a few things straight. First of all, we don't do permaculture under fire, okay? We have to wait till the bullets stop shooting and the bombs stop blowing up. That's very wise, because you can't do anything when you're dead. Also, people that are under fire or people in a war, they don't have any time for gardening or whatever. They just have time for survival. So you have to wait till the dust settles, okay? Now, the problem you got in Syria is you have to work out what kind of ammunition was used, right? If it's depleted uranium, don't go there, right? You're never going to solve that problem. Depleted uranium will make everybody sick and die eventually. So don't go to a place that you're not going to come back from, is probably what I'm saying, all right? Okay, so you got a backpack on your back and all that sort of thing. You go in there, what you need to do is you need to establish a field school, okay? So we call them permaculture field school. Because people don't know who you are. And of course, everybody wants to help everybody. So there's all these people coming and saying, oh, we're going to help you and do this, right? How do they know you're any different from them? Because you establish a permaculture field school on a farm. And the first thing you start doing is farming the way you want people to farm, or you farm better than them. And so out of all the talk and everything, all of a sudden you're different than everybody else because you're demonstrating what you're going to teach, right? So you have authority straight away because, hey, that's the organic farm guy because he's got an organic farm, right? And they come normally to grow the food, but then they see waste management, they see about nutritional health, they see livelihoods, all those kind of things can be done out of the field school. So you start off your field school, you make a partnership with some local farmer or family or whatever, right? Keep away from religion. Don't go to the church and make a deal with them because they'll screw you. Don't worry about that, Will. Okay, so it's better off you make you have to be a very good judge of character and pick the right people to start the field school with. And so it's better off at the beginning of a disaster rather than say 2 or 3 years in, because by that time the people have worked out how to milk the cow, right? So at the very beginning you can find an honest group of people who really want to make a change. You work with them and you build your field school with your students. So what I do is I run a PDC 5 times a year, and every time we run a PDC we have like 40 to 50 students, and then we use those students to build part of the farm. So your field school becomes a school that is built by the students, right? And also the people are always coming back to see, I was here last year for a course, I just want to see what's going on. So they always upgrade themselves by coming back and sending their family or friends, you know. So at first it starts out small, but then this network begins to grow because all these people, they might come from a different place, but they'll take back what they learned, and they'll send other people from where they came from. So eventually you get to the point where you need other field schools, and during this time, the first 2 years, you're going to focus on selecting and training the trainer. You pick the right people and train them up. What you want is a local that will train a local, right? That's when you get a result. If you see a white man up there training, they think, oh, it's white man's magic, right? So your job is to make yourself redundant by finding the right people, training them up, and then, you know, you've got your main field school here, then you have an annex, another field school because you've got a senior intern or a senior student, and then, you know, they start going all over the place. And then you work out, you can actually send say an intern's got 2 years to become a teacher. That trainee teacher can move between the field schools and diversify what they learn, right? And also you can find people that are specialists, like someone who's really good at beekeeping can be the beekeeper that goes around and teaches everybody beekeeping. All of a sudden you've got a honey industry, right? At a certain point you'll work out you don't need to be there anymore. It's time for the next mission, all right? Okay, so that's basically the field school. So at the moment I'm working in the Philippines. I have 2 field schools there. One does organic pigs, organic rice, organic fish, organic vegetables, and organic pizza, right? So we make a nutritional pizza, and I haven't met a culture yet that doesn't like a pizza. The funny thing was when I was in Hong Kong, we made a big pizza oven in Hong Kong, and I said to these Chinese students, why don't you guys make a Chinese pizza? You know, with Chinese flavors on it. Right? Maybe we'll innovate. And they said, what for? I said, well, maybe you have a Chinese... No, we don't like Chinese pizza. We want a pizza because it's not Chinese food, okay? Okay. Anyway, you always have a good restaurant, and you always have a good cafe, good food, and that's how you change people. Food is everything, right, in permaculture. If you have crappy food in your field school, well, no one's going to really take you seriously. This, what you guys eat down here is exactly what we eat in the Philippines, except we have some organic bacon, organic fish, and organic eggs and all that kind of stuff, right? I don't believe in industrial meat. I really hate eating meat from a bad system. I don't mind eating meat from Tony if he's going to kill his own pig, because I know he'll do it the right way, right? Okay, so your permaculture field schools can be lily pads for your students, and then you can even go to other countries, and you can even cross-pollinate from other countries. So our field school, we train people from all over the world. We even had our first Luxembourgian permaculture trainee last year, named Viking. He's a really good guy.
Viking?
Viking, we call him.
Great name.
There's no Vikings in Luxembourg, but there is now. We also train the local Filipinos, train the native people, and we train city Filipinos, right? Or city international. So a lot of times on a course, half our courses, 50% of our course are hands-on. Okay, so for example, we'll go and build a vegetable garden, and then we'll go in the classroom and learn the theory. Now, if you've already built a vegetable garden, you've got a whole bunch of different questions than somebody who's never built a vegetable garden, right? So if you try teaching the two classes the other way around, you'll see what I mean, right? You get a bunch of people who've never done a vegetable garden before, and you start doing the theory. You go, well, what about that? What about that? Asking questions until you don't even, you just drive you crazy. Build a vegetable garden first, and then their questions are completely different, right? So we do action first, classroom second. I even got many teachers that don't yet know how to read and write. They don't need to, but they have enough charisma and enough know-how how to speak, right? So the first story I tell them is a story called Mr. Today, Mr. Tomorrow, right? So these two farmers are Mr. Today and Mr. Tomorrow, and they live next to each other. And every morning, Mr. Today gets up, goes over and digs a hole, plants a tree, puts mulch around the tree, builds a tree guard so the goats can't bite the tree, and then he puts a little bamboo tube in so that they can water the tree, right? Then he goes back and lays on his hammock. And then Mr. Tomorrow is watching over the fence and says to his wife, "Oh my God, that Mr. Today is such a lazy bastard. You know, he's only planted one tree and then he's going back to bed. Tomorrow I'm going to plant 10 trees. So the next morning he gets up again, he's watching over the fence, and sure enough, Mr. Today gets up, goes over, digs another hole, plants another tree, waters both trees, puts a goat guard in, all that sort of stuff, goes back to bed. So this happens every day for the whole year, right? And sometime during the story, Mr. Today puts in some irrigation and a few other cool things so he can sleep more, right? But of course, Mr. Tomorrow never does anything because he's going to do it tomorrow. And at the end of the year, Mr. Tomorrow's looking over his fence, and Mr. Today's out there going, he's counting his trees. Hey, Mr. Tomorrow, how you going? Look, I got 365 fruit trees planted here, and none of them have been damaged by goats. They're all perfectly healthy, and I don't have to do much work. How's that? 365. That's quite a bit of food, isn't it? How many did you plant this year? Oh, I didn't plant many, but next year I'll plant 1,000. You know. So that story's about taking people from dreaming about stuff into action. What good is permaculture without action? You know, what good's a plan unless you put it into action, right? So a lot of times we'll sit around and procrastinate, but actually the person who starts doing things gets the job done, especially when it comes to growing, right? So that little story has quite a lot of information in it. Like what? How to plant a tree properly with the goat guard, the mulch, right? And the others, what other information's in there?
Start small.
What?
Start small.
Start small, but do something
Every day.
every day.
And
do a
sleep.
step. And
Yeah.
have a lifestyle, right?
Have a rest.
Yeah.
Enjoy life.
So and you can add, you know, every time I teach my trainers this story, each different culture takes it on differently, right? Even in Uganda, you know, they don't have neighbors. They have a fortified stick village. So we had to change the story. Mr. Today and Mr. Tomorrow had to be different characters, right? We also have other stories like Romeo and Juliet and Bruce. Romeo, Juliet, and Bruce. And Bruce is the permaculture guy, and Romeo thinks he's got in good with Juliet, but Bruce has got a better house. He's got all his vegetables growing. He's got a stove in his house with no smoke in the kitchen. His animals are all healthy, and all Romeo's got is his guitar. So finally, Bruce wins Juliet. And the moral of the story is the permaculture guy gets a chick. And funny enough, in East Timor, I actually, when I first got there, I saw that the men of East Timor were just absolute slugs, and the women were doing all the work, right? The men would sit there smoking away and talking all shit, and the women would be doing all the work. So one day I told the story of Romeo, Juliet, and Bruce, and all the women started laughing. I said, "What's so funny?" I said, "There's no man like that." And I thought about it. I said, "Shit, there isn't a man like that," you know. But my interpreter at the time, he had this secret girlfriend who was from the other side of Timor. That if he was caught with her, he'd be killed by the father for sure, right? So then a new plan came to his mind that he would become Bruce. So he went back to his compound. And over a period of 6 months, he put all the vegetable gardens in, changed everything, made it, you know, absolute permaculture dreamland. Then he went back up the other end of the island, and he had a relationship with the girl's father, a business one. So he brought the father down on some pretext. He said, "Oh, I just want to show you something here." He took him around, showed him the garden, showed him the water tank, showed him the stove in the house, and all the things that he'd made, his animal systems, and his rice paddy with duck, fish, and rice in it. And the old man's going, "Wow, this is really great. This is really great. Why are you showing me all this?" He goes, "Well, because I'm going out with your daughter." "What?" He knew something was like that, and he's getting really angry, and he said, "Okay, tell you what, you can have my daughter if you do all this up at my house. I got an acre just outside, okay?" Done deal. So we created the real guy. So finally we had a male model, a role model in Timor that we could point to and say, "See that?" And he spurned the whole one. Now a few months ago, a friend of mine came, and one of the things we started in Timor was Perma Scouts, you know, Boy Scouts. Right, my friend started all this, Ego, and his friend went to this Perma Scout jamboree. They had 18,000 Perma Scouts come to the jamboree, and on the stage they had to do skits, and a group of teenagers got up and they did the Romeo, Juliet, and Bruce skit, and it was really funny. And my mate said, "I've seen that before. I've seen it on the skit." I said, "Shit, it's still going, right?" So that's a legend now. I stuck a permaculture legend into their culture, right? It needed to be done. When I was in Uganda, the Karamojong culture is all about cattle, right? So if you want a wife, you got to go and first you go and rape your wife, right? And then because you've done something wrong, the father comes with his AK-47 here. Okay, before you kill me, how much do I have to pay? He said 100 cows. So you got 2 weeks to come up with 100 cows, otherwise the family comes and kills you. So you go and shoot up another village, steal all the cows, come back, pay for the wife, and it's all cool, and you got your wife. That's the culture, right? That's all created through food aid, by the way. That wouldn't be there if it wasn't for food aid. So when I did the Romeo, Juliet, and Bruce, we had to come up with a Karamojong version because the only thing a male can do in that culture is get a gun and become a warrior. Right? The warriors shoot up villages and steal the cattle. Then their warriors come back a few months later and shoot up your family and take the cattle back. So there's this whole war going on just for no reason, right? So we had to come up with a different story. You know, this guy said, "I don't want to be a warrior anymore. I'm going to go and grow my own vegetables," right? And blah blah blah. So I went to this prison in Uganda, and we had mostly male warriors in the prison, and plus we had about 20 females. The females were the husbands of warriors who'd gone and murdered people for money. Like, so if the husband was out on a mission and the kids were starving, so she'd borrow his gun and go out and shoot someone and take the money. That's the kind of tough place it was. And they're only just petite little women. They don't look like, you know, anything. Anyway, so I told that story in front of all these Karamojong in prison, and all the men roared laughing, ha ha. And I said, "What are you laughing at?" I said, "That guy's so gay, he's not even a warrior, you know." Then I said, "Okay, girls, which one do you want, the warrior or the Green Warrior?" And they all instantly yelled out, "Green Warrior," straight away, in unison. And the men were like, "What the fuck? You want that gay guy that doesn't even shoot people?" And then this woman got up and said, "Yeah, it's okay for you. You go on your hunting party and blah, blah, blah. But you're not there when they come to shoot us and shoot the kids and all that crap. We're over that shit. We want that guy." And the warriors, like, their mouths were hanging open. They've been doing this shit for so many years, they didn't even realize the chicks don't even like it. Yeah, so there's lots of best practices that I've learned in my. I've been in the field of aid now for 20 years, right? So I'm always looking for better ways of doing things. For example, what I did in 5 years in East Timor, I did in 1 year in Aceh, right? And now in the Philippines, I think I've got it down to I think it's about a year. I could probably do it. A year I can make a permanent change, all right? But currently what I'm into now is not so much aid, now I'm working in CSR, corporate social responsibility. So corporations, what's good about a corporation is a corporation will do a deal with the community, and the deal's got some, you know, you got to do this, this, and this. So this corporation has done a deal with this 10,000 hectares of native land in the Philippines on the condition that they sort the sanitation and water out, they sort out livelihoods, they want to preserve their culture, and there's a couple other things I can't remember now. But anyway, so that the corporation hands it over to me and they say, "Okay, can you do all that?" "Yeah, I can do that, but I will only do it my way." Okay, so first we have to establish a field school, then we got to work with the school kids, then we're going to do forestry, blah, blah, blah. Okay, deal. So they just give me a box of money every month, and then they come in every month to see what I've done, and I get the next box of money. That's the way it works. It's way better than an NGO. You know what NGO stands for?
Non-government.
No, it stands for never get out. Never get out of the office, never get out of the car, and never get out of the country. Right, it's true. What the NGO does is manage the situation to suit themselves. All right. Sometimes I go to some of these NGOs and I say, "Look, man, we've got starving people up there, and if we just did this one thing, we'd sort out everything." Sorry, that's not our deal. You know, they don't care about poor people really. What they care about is manage the situation so they profit from it. Even if they're not evil in their intent, it's the same thing long term. So what do you get when you have people that get aid? What if I pay you $5 a day for 20 years to be poor? What do you got? You're pretty good at being poor, aren't you? All right. I've been to villages where I was in this village in East Timor once, and we could see down the mountain this UN convoy winding its way up the thing, and somebody like, quick, look, here they come! Quick, they grab the kids on the face, slap the kids. Kids are crying. They got dirt all over their kids, ripped up their clothing, and by the time the convoy got everybody, oh, help us, please, we're so poor. And people go, oh, what's wrong? Why are the kids all crying? Oh, they're so sick. And you know, they unloaded the vehicles, got all this food out, gave them all the shit, got back in, and as soon as they're down the road, they all gave each other the high five. Yay! We got some good shit out of those guys, eh? That's what aid does. All right. But you never see that. You never see that when they advertise it. They always say, we're doing everything we can to help these poor people. Yeah, you better send some more money right away. I need a new helicopter. All right? When we do permaculture aid, we never have to come back. In fact, what I do is I'll set up one field school. Once it's working, I bring people from other places and get those people to show them. They live in the hut with the people, they go out and they help with the garden and stuff, and they go, yeah, this is what I need at my place, right? And it's very contagious. Because it's so simple and it works. And if you've already plugged into that culture, that Timorese culture or the Ugandan culture, or whatever the hell culture you're in, like the old people have got a lot of wisdom that you can add into there. Like say, for example, you're doing pest control. The same pests were there 200 years ago, right? They already know how to get rid of the snail. They already know how to get rid of that beetle or whatever. Go and ask the grandparents. And next thing you know, you've got yourself a local manual. That's how we did it in East Timor. Right? One time we had a problem in East Timor with rats. Rats were eating the rice. So they grew the rice paddy, and then it looks like a ball patch beginning in the middle of the rice paddy and moving out. The rats really liked hybrid rice. So they wanted to buy all this rat sack and shit. I said, no, hang on. I'm sure the rats were here a couple of hundred years ago. Ask your grandparents how they deal with rats. So they come back and they said, oh, Grandpa said put itchy bean in the rice paddy. So this itchy bean, they got this bean, it's got like a hair on it, and if you get it on your skin, it really itches, right? So they threw it all in a bucket, grind it all up, throw it into the rice paddy water, and it makes the rats itchy, and they don't want to go there. There's no chemicals, right? And it doesn't make humans itchy when it's in water. And I learned so many things like that from them. There's somebody somewhere had the solution, and it's in the culture, right? Another thing that we do is we create a food calendar. So we get a calendar from January to December, and then we look at those months, and we work out, you have to write in there what food's coming up and what you have to plant, right? You can buy those ones from the shops here, but they're kind of generic. We do them for every village we go in, and sometimes they come up and say, oh, Grandpa used to do that, right? And in Timor, we worked out, it was January, I think, was the called skinny month. So why is it skinny? It's wet season. So yeah, but the rain is too heavy. It destroys all the vegetables, so we don't have any vegetables. I said, okay, well, let's back it up to October. We're going to do sweet potato, we're going to do cassava, we're going to do a whole bunch of root crops. So when skinny season comes, we're not skinny anymore. And I went, hey, what a great idea. The problem with war is it destroys all the old people. Who's the fastest runner? Not Grandma, right? So she's the one that dies first, and same with the kids. So after a war, you don't have a lot of old people left, so they lose that benefit of the elders. So whoever's remaining, you actually have to set up a system to get the students to go and start recording what's left. And then from there, it comes back. There'll always be some 150-year-old dude up in the hills that's still got the last bit you need. You know what I mean? It'll come to you. Okay, so corporate social responsibility is a really good way to fund a project. How else could we get funding? Because as a Green Warrior, I want to go out and I want to sort the world out. I'm not waiting to get a job. I'm going to go out and do something, right? So I got a saying called, think like a pirate, act like a warrior. So say I see a problem. So I go to a country and I say, shit, these people need help. How am I going to get funding to do the project? I go to an organization and I might see, I go shopping in an organization until I find a CSP. A CSP is a common sense person. Someone in that organization that looks at me in the eye goes, hey, yeah, I know what you want, and what you want is what I want. I want to help these people. So we come up with a plan. So an organization is already an NGO, right? So it's got some kind of credibility. So then I go to a donor. So the organization says, yeah, okay, I'll be on this project. Then I'll come up with a plan. Like this is what I did in Timor. I came up with my 10 10 rules nurseries plan. And I built a model of that nursery in World Vision in Delhi. Then I went to USAID and found the lady that signs the checks. And I said, oh, hi Melissa, I'm Steve Cran from Permaculture, blah, blah, blah. Can I take you and show you a really cool project? Oh, okay. So we just drive around corner and there, go to the nursery, and she goes, wow, this is really great. Everything's made from local materials, right? These people that are potting up here, none of them had a job before, but look at them, they're all professional, planning that things out, right? And then I explain how in years to come there'll be, if this project goes for a few years, there'll be like 200,000 trees coming out of economic value. And she's, oh my God, this is so good. What do you want? I said, I want $100,000. Done. Come and pick it up tomorrow. Bring the head of World Vision with you. We'll sign it up. I had to write the proposal in their office, right? So that's another way of getting money. There's crowdfunding, right? There's what's the difference between a charity and an NGO? Do you know? A charity or an NGO? What does a charity do?
Gives charity.
Charity raises money, doesn't it? Oh, give your money to help the people of the world, So the charity's good at pulling the money in, but then you got these do-gooders get on the plane and they go to some country and they get ripped off straight away because they're do-gooders, right? What you need is a hard-ass pirate kind of guy, like a Robin Hood type of dude, who's going to make sure that money hits the ground, right? So a lot of times charities are good at raising money, they're very bad at administering the program, right? So an NGO pretends to have the right people on the ground, but as soon as they, say for example, World Vision goes to, using World Vision because I hate them, World Vision goes to, say, Timor or whatever, right? They only go with a support staff. They don't actually have anybody on their staff that can do anything, right? As soon as they get a project, they hire somebody like me to come and do the project, right? So, so what you can do is, you can actually use them as a tool. I would say an NGO is like a shovel. You pick it up and use it. If it breaks, get another one, right? It's just an NGO. But some people they're like tribal. Oh, it's my NGO. We're going to save the world. Sometimes you'll even get a fight in a meeting with a bunch of NGOs fighting over who's going to help what. And I just go, slam my hand on the ground and say, let's fight over the last tree we plant, not the first one we plant. Right? Okay, other ways to get money is crowdfunding, sister schools. Go to a primary school or a high school, and say you got 500 kids in that school and everybody brings in $10 a month. That's a pretty good fee, right? You don't need a lot of money in the field. One of the mistakes that NGOs make is they have a big budget, right? So they have to get rid of that budget to get the next budget. A better way of funding is trickle funding. So I say, Tony, I'm going to send you to Laos to do this project in a village. I'm going to give you 1,000 US a month, and that's all you're going to get. Oh, okay. When you get there, that's a lot of money in that little village, right? You can buy tools, you can hire people, you can get resources coming in. That's what I did in my first project in the Philippines. I only had $1,000 a month. But I bought all the bamboo from everybody in town. So everybody got a benefit from my $1,000 a month. I hired lots of different people. I bought animals, I bought my food. Everything came. I made sure that money went locally. Right? Any other ways we can get money? Well, at a certain point in the project, you're going to have produce, aren't you? You can sell food, you can value add, you can come up with some kind of product. I got a team of guys in the Philippines that can build eco-lodges now. They built their own field school, but now that everybody likes that style, they're out building for other people, right? You have to break the mold of conventional aid. So I have a thing that I say. When I went to East Timor in 1999, some people in this area here said, well, that's really good that you're going. Let's come to our place and we'll have a ceremony for you, like a spiritual ceremony to give you protection on us. Okay? So they went to these standing stones in Mullumbimby, and we had this really cool night under the full moon. And then someone said, can you get up and say a few words? I said, oh, thank you very much for what you did. I really feel good. And someone said, so what's your plan? When you step off the ship in East Timor, it's all smashed up and everything's burning and everybody's in trouble. What's your plan? I said, my plan is to proceed accordingly. I believe that I'll channel the way to do it, or I'll find it. You don't actually have to have a plan. In fact, all your plans you make when you've never been to a place change the instant you step on the ground anyway. So, all right. But with enough training and enough belief in yourself, you can change any situation around. I've been to Aceh, the biggest tsunami in the world, right? Built a field school there, changed all those people. I've been to Uganda, northern Uganda, where they had 50 years of food aid, which destroyed the people's culture. I've been to Ethiopia, East Timor, 5 years in East Timor. We put, permaculture is king in East Timor, right? And, several other places I've been to. You can't go there and do a 2-week course and then you've saved everybody's ass, right? You've actually got to stay in that place and change things, right? Until you can step back and your own people have got it in there. Permaculture's got its own, it's almost like a plant. It'll grow the roots where it wants and the fruit will be whatever it will be, right? Sometimes you have to stay there and tweak it. Other times you got the right people and you just can leave and go to the next one.